And
bet.
I
Great
am
job.
Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Stolen futures. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, the evidence is mounting, and the facts are they're just too devastating to ignore. Tonight, the angle will conclusively demonstrate that Democrats aren't just destroying our economy and our foreign policy. They're also destroying something even more precious, our children. They're destroying their innocence, their education, their spirit, their sense of optimism. They're destroying their future. Now, look no further than liberal Montgomery County, Maryland. It's a wealthy suburb of Washington, D.C., where we see the shocking consequences of majority liberal Democrat rule. Now, during the pandemic, we spent a great deal of time exposing the county executive there, an uber liberal named Mark Elrich. Now, long after we knew that COVID lockdowns and rules were hurting our kids badly, the man refused to budge.
In our opinion, the best solution is to do a temporary pause. The school system needs to take a pause and end the chaos. It's way too chaotic right now.
It was vindictive, and now the results are in. Academically, Montgomery County students are falling further and further behind. Now, data shows that in 2019, it's not a great figure, but just over 50% of public school students there demonstrated proficiency in the English language arts. But then go to 2021, that figure dropped to 36%. And it's not just the Democrats' COVID closures. They robbed the kids of class time, of sports, of socialization. They also triggered an explosion of crime. Well, idle hands are the devil's playground, indeed. Police in Montgomery County say they're seeing unprecedented levels of violent crime. As of the end of June, homicides involving guns, victims, and suspects under the age of 21 have more than doubled from 2021 to 2022. And we can all see it, right? I mean, we see the anger, the fury, the callousness manifest in the horrific crimes now being committed by young people across America. In Philly, two brothers aged 10 and 14 just turned themselves into police over the beating death of a 73-year-old man. The video, it's stomach-churning. You can see the group of teens hitting him over and over again with a traffic cone. Now, this happened around 2:30 in the morning. So why the heck are kids this age out in the middle of the night? Where the heck are the parents? Now, the stories over just the past week are equally disturbing. In New York City, a 15-year-old was arrested in the stabbing death of a 14-year-old in the subway. In Mississippi, teen brothers were arrested for shooting and killing a 17-year-old, while a 19-year-old there was arrested for the murder of his 6-year-old half-brother. Then over in Detroit, a 13-year-old was charged in the murder of his 14-year-old girlfriend. There's a growing sense among young people that, look, they can commit crimes, even murder, with zero consequences. And as a result, more retail outlets are now leaving big cities altogether. Forget it, not going to be there anymore. Because after rampant robberies and shootings even, 7-Eleven is encouraging franchise owners to close stores across Los Angeles today. And Starbucks, they're closing 16 locations across 5 major cities, citing safety concerns. Well, can you blame them? Who would want to open a business today in Chicago, St. Louis, Baltimore, San Francisco? Why risk capital there when you could open up in safer places where criminals are actually punished? That's a novel concept. So congrats, Democrats, because you excuse and you justify crime, you look the other way, and you end up hurting the hardworking people who actually keep these cities running. Now, back in the spring of 2020, we tried desperately, I don't know how many nights the Angle tried to warn the blue state leaders that if they kept their towns, their cities, their states, their schools locked down, they'd shatter not just their economy, but their children. Yet all the lockdown governors, you know who they are: Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, J.B. Pritzker, Andrew Cuomo, Wolf in Pennsylvania, they didn't care. Because for them, it was all about control and power. Hey, children had to suffer as a result? Well, too bad. Because the teachers' unions ran the show, and they ran our kids into the ground. Now, of course, they're back in school now, but it doesn't mean they're going to actually be given a quality education. We know what the far-left nut jobs and the NEA really want.
We will fight tirelessly for the right to choose. We will never stop. We will say gay. We will say trans. We will continue to take seriously our responsibility as educators to teach our students this nation's true and complete history. You get in the way of our progress toward a more just nation. We will get in the way of your election.
Okay, these aren't educators. They're Mercedes Marxists. They're ignorant blowhards. They're not teaching your kids how to read and how to write, how to think critically. They're teaching them how to protest and agitate against their own country. And when, we know where they get their cues. Because when young people were ripping down statues and taking over city blocks in the name of racial reckoning, they were celebrated and given their marching orders.
This is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
We got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
Well, we know exactly what you mean, Maxine. You hope that if you stoke enough anger in young people toward police or toward the government or the Constitution, they won't even notice what an utter fraud and failure you've been during your 30 years in politics. So Democrats not only stole precious class time, athletics, socialization from our kids, in some cases, they actually stole their ambition as well. Because since the school closures, chronic absenteeism has exploded for both students and teachers. Just in the 2021-2022 school year, 49% of schools reported higher chronic absenteeism. That's more than 10% absence for teachers, and a ridiculous high 39% for students. Now, this is disturbing, but the Democrats don't seem to realize that when their policies directly harm children, they've effectively declared war on the parents as well. The relentless promotion of things like transgenderism, pot, porn, abortion, and of course racial grievance, the attacks on the great works of Western civilization, attacks on our founding and our Constitution, it's just created this big negative swirl among young people of cynicism and a seething anger. Today, they're more depressed, they're more anxious, and they're less hopeful. According to a new survey done for Fortune magazine, just came out, 60% of college kids reported being diagnosed with a mental health condition. And almost half of all college students said the pandemic worsened their mental state. Young Americans, they need responsible adults in charge who will tell them the hard truths when they're necessary. But with Democrats running our schools, public health sector, Congress, and the White House, our youth have been fed nothing but lies and half-truths. The Democrats know they're in trouble, so they're blaming Biden. They blame the messaging. They blame the American people. But here's the harsh truth. Every day, more and more Americans learn that electing Democrats leads to poverty, crime, and despair. And it ruins the lives of our youngest and our most vulnerable citizens. American parents are on the move, and Democrats are going to feel their wrath at the polls. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.